In today's Black Clover video, we will show you why Yami uses Lucifugus magic. Furthermore, we have found indisputable evidence in demonology that Lucifugus does indeed use dark magic. However, we also show that Yami is most likely not possessed by Lucifugus, much like Asta was not possessed by Liebe and yet was able to use Liebe's anti-magic. And maybe Yami can get a devil form even without the ritual. That and more now. Also, only a small percentage of the people who watch our videos are actually subscribed, so if you end up liking this video, consider subscribing. Please enjoy this video, let's go! Yami's dark magic is a very rare magic ability that allows the user to create and manipulate darkness. In fact, this magical ability is so rare that there is no other person known to use dark magic besides Yami. Not even the biggest magic nerd there is, Julius Novachrono, has ever heard of dark magic. So Yami is truly one of a kind. But there are many more secrets about Yami and his dark magic. First of all, Yami is a foreigner from the Hino country. This land is very different from what we have seen on the continent of the Four Kingdoms. They speak a completely different language and use a unique sword style known as katana, which is used for the usual type of combat, while the concept of ki supports the warrior. In fact, we have never heard anything about magic or mana in relation to the Hino country. This raises the question of whether the people of the Land of the Rising Sun are even capable of using magic. I know this question seems kind of absurd, and I agree that it sounds ridiculous. I mean, why would a human not be able to use magic or not have mana? It's not like our main character doesn't have mana or magic, right? Possibility that Asta's father is from the Hino country? But anyways, the reason why it's so intriguing to assume that the Hino country could be fundamentally different from the Four Kingdoms in terms of mana and magic is because they specialize in using ki, which only makes sense if there's a specific reason for it. Like for example that there's no magic. The use of a katana as a main combat style also suggests that something might be different from the continent of the Four Kingdoms, which focus heavily on magic and where you hardly see any weapons. The best you can find is a wand, and Yami only uses his katana because dark magic is slow unless he uses it with his katana. But as if that wasn't enough clues to think Hino might be different, Yami, who was shipwrecked in the Clover Kingdom, never showed dark magic before he got his grimoire. We literally never heard any of his stories where he was able to use dark magic before the grimoire ceremony. And only after he received his dark magic grimoire, he released dark magic, and all of a sudden people started talking about the evil and creepy magic ability. The rumor about the person using dark magic spread so quickly that even Julius Novachrono had heard about it and decided to see it for himself. If Yami had used dark magic before, people would have been talking about this dark magic ability even before Yami received his dark magic grimoire. We know that Yami was shipwrecked when he was very young. It looks like he spent at least 2-3 years in the Clover Kingdom before he received his grimoire, because when Julius found him, Yami was already able to speak the language almost fluently. He was also able to talk with Nacht without any problems and live a normal life. All he had to learn was the written language, how to write his name and all the letters and so on. But still, the time he has already lived in the Clover Kingdom should have been enough to let people know that there's someone with such dark magical ability. Especially if we consider how much trouble Yami has caused being literally the leader of a criminal group. And yet, no one ever talked about dark magic until the day he received his grimoire. And if we look at the panel of that said day, we see Yami releasing the dark magic and looking at the magic very surprised, as if he didn't know that he himself was able to use such magic, almost as if this is not his magic, or he never knew that he could use magic at all. This raises the question of whether Yami has magic at all, and whether the Hino country even knows the concept of mana and magic. So if Yami's homeland really doesn't use magic for whatever reason, then theoretically Yami will be just like Asta, who only got his magic ability after he got a grimoire that didn't really belong to him, and with which he could then use a power from the underworld that came from a devil. And if we compare that with Yami, then we know that it is also confirmed for Yami that he uses a power from the underworld. That was said by Morris, and that is a big warning signal. Morris said, "Dark magic, the power of the underworld dwells in your magic." This is crystal clear evidence that dark magic is connected to the underworld in some way, and may even be magic from the underworld itself. And just as Asta's grimoire doesn't really belonged to Asta, Yami shouldn't have received the Grimoire from the Clover Kingdom. The only reason Yuna received the Grimoire from the Clover Kingdom, even though he is from the Spade Kingdom, is because it wasn't really Yuna who received the Grimoire, but his elven soul, who was originally from the Clover Kingdom. But Yami is not from the Clover Kingdom. He is from Hino and thus should not have received the Grimoire from the Grimoire Tower, if that is how the Grimoire Tower really works. After all, Yuna did not receive his true Grimoire until he was in the Grimoire library of the Spade Kingdom. It's all a bit strange and we don't really know how the Grimoires of the associated kingdoms work. But we are not the only ones wondering why Yami was able to obtain a Clover Grimoire even though he is a foreigner. The citizens of the Clover Kingdom also did not understand why he could obtain a Grimoire. So this is definitely a question that should be asked, and it is an indication that normally someone like Yami should not receive a Grimoire, at least not from the Clover Kingdom. So everything fits perfectly with the way Asta received his Grimoire. Both Asta and Yami seem to have had no magic ability before. Both then received a Grimoire they shouldn't have received, and both then used an unknown and never before seen power from the underworld. The only difference is that Asta's anti-magic is proven to be from a devil named Liebe, while Yami dark magic's origin is unknown. If we continue this comparison, Yami's magic should theoretically come from a devil as well, and there's actually a devil that has a very similar magic ability to Yami. In fact, it's almost 100% the same magic. Not only are the similarities in Black Clover very accurate, but demonology also proves that Yami and Lucifugus both have the same magic, the dark magic from the underworld. The biggest similarity is the same color, the same way the magic moves, its shape and pattern. Literally everything about the way it appears is the same, there's no doubt about that. But aside from the physical resemblance, the attributes are very similar. We have only seen one chapter, actually a few panels of Lucifugus using his magic, and that was already enough to match Yami's magic, almost as if Tabata did it on purpose. Nacht summoned Lucifugus and Lucifugus attacked. But that's not all, he was also able to avoid the magic of the ritual, almost as if he had absorbed the magic, like Yami can absorb other people's magic with his dark magic black hole. But that's not all. Lucifugus has shown another ability, that of freezing other people so that they can't move. We have seen this with Nacht's parents and everyone around them, and also with Nacht himself who couldn't move. He literally said, "My body will not move." If he could move, he would have tried to fight. And if we now remember the fight between Yami and Patri, something similar happened to Patri during the fight. First, Yami absorbed Patri's magic as we mentioned before, but then Patri was also unable to move, just as it was the case with Nacht when he summoned Lucifugus. Patri literally mentioned both abilities in one panel, that Lucifugus used in one page. It's absolutely the same magic, and if that didn't convince you, let's just dig out the demonology books. Lucifugus is another name for the demon Lucifuge. This devil is mainly mentioned and described in the Grand Grimoire, which is why it is often considered the book of Lucifugus. The Grand Grimoire is a grimoire of black magic. That black is literally dark is obvious, but more on that in a moment. The book is significant mainly because it contains a special pact between a mage and Lucifugus. So if you have this book, you can use Lucifugus magic. At this point, we should all ask ourselves whether Yami's grimoire could be a reference to the Grand Grimoire in demonology. I mean, even when Ria touched Yami's grimoire, he said that Yami's grimoire has a strange pattern, but then he stopped by saying that it doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter, then why did he mention it? Ria has probably touched hundreds or even thousands of grimoires. What is so special about Yami's grimoire that even Ria thinks it's strange? Just like the whole kingdom sees Yami's magic as weird and creepy. Isn't it ironic that Yami always refers to Asa's magic as creepy and weird, while everyone else refers to Yami's magic the same way? Almost as if both magic abilities are creepy and weird, maybe because they have a similar origin. But back to Lucifugus from demonology. This devil promises to be kind to those in possession of a certain book that has his true signature in it, which in turn could be a hint that Lucifugus may have corrupted a grimoire in Black Clover with his signature and then left that grimoire in the human world for someone to obtain one day. The reason he will do this is obviously to be present in the human world, considering that dark magic is required to create the Clifford tree. It is quite clear why Lucifugus would have an interest in passing on his own magic to a human so that one day it could be used as a source for the Clifford ritual. Besides, the Grand Grimoire from demonology is a grimoire with black magic, and black is dark. Although the reason it's called black magic in demonology is obviously different than why it's called dark magic in Black Clover. But keep in mind, it could just be a reference, and references are not always taken word for word, but are often heavily modified from the actual meaning. Black magic in demonology is considered evil, just as all the citizens of the Clover Kingdom talk about Yami's magic. Moreover, Lucifugus is referred to as the living darkness, and in other writings as even the spirit of darkness or the lord of darkness. So if Lucifugus is the lord of darkness, why would we assume that Lucifugus in Black Clover would use any magic other than dark magic when we already have so much evidence that his magic is similar to Yami's and Yami uses dark magic? So maybe Yami really is using Lucifugus' magic because he is using the grimoire that Lucifugus signed. However, this does not mean that Yami is possessed by Lucifugus, because before Asta performed the devil binding ritual, he was not possessed by a devil either and could still use anti-magic. However, if our theory is correct, then there must be a connection between Yami and Lucifugus. This connection would also explain why Nacht suddenly began to hate Yami. And the last question to answer is why Yami doesn't have the cursed Vake or Lucifugus devil horns, even though he may be using magic from the underworld, and maybe even literally the magic of a devil if our theory is correct. But here we can simply say that Asta also used anti-magic with his swords, which did not cause his horns to appear, but only when the witch queen triggered something in Asta that caused Lieb's anti-magic to literally fill his body. Since that moment, Asta knew how to use the devil form. However, Yami refuses to use dark magic with his body, especially when it affects his body, because dark magic makes you extremely slow. This is the reason why Yami uses his katana for his dark magic, and could also be the reason why Yami never received the cursed Vake. But it is also worth mentioning that when he fought the three members of the Eye of the Midnight Sun, Fana, Veto, and Rhea, he said that something almost awakened inside him. Of course, this could be dismissed as Yami's typical nonsensical talk, but we also know that Tabata loves to hide foreshadowing in such seemingly irrelevant sentences. So maybe there is something in Yami that is just waiting to be awakened, when Yami will no longer be able to use his katana, either because it's too corrupted by anti-magic or because he just doesn't want to take it away from Asta. Maybe Yami will accept his magic and its slow attribute and try for the first time to use it in a similar way as Asta. Maybe he will grow devil horns and maybe he will unlock a new devil form. If of course Yami's dark magic is actually really Lucifugus magic. What do you think? Is Yami's dark magic connected to Lucifugus in some way? If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And if you want to see more Black Clover content, subscribe to our channel with the notification bell activated. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye.